What if I told you that 2 feet of solid ice between you and the fish isn't a sound barrier? What if it's a microphone amplifying your every move directly to your target? We've all been there. You get to the lake, it's dead silent, you're excited. But by the end of the day, nothing, not a single bite. Today, we're going to explore a radical idea that the fish heard you coming from 20 meters away and decided you weren't worth the risk. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will look at that frozen surface completely differently. We're going to reveal the #1 reason why so many anglers unknowingly spook every fish in their spot before they even get a line wet. So, let me ask you this right now. Do you really believe a few footsteps on thick ice can make a difference? Drop your answer in the comments and let's see if I can change your mind. For generations, the ice fishing checklist has been pretty much the same. Find a good spot, check the ice thickness, drill a hole, and pick the right bait. We talk endlessly about jigs, lures, and electronics. But we rarely, if ever, talk about the noise we make just getting there. The common belief, the Dudovsky method or the old school way, is that thick ice is our shield. It's a solid, frozen buffer that separates our world from theirs. We see guys driving trucks on the ice, setting up huge shelters, drilling a dozen holes with loud gas augers, and we think it's normal. It's just how it's done. This thinking is so ingrained that we dismiss the idea of being quiet as something only for spooky, clear water trout in the summer. But the laws of physics don't change just because the water got hard. We've been operating on a massive assumption for years, and it's likely costing us a lot of fish. Let's begin by painting a familiar picture. You arrive at the lake before sunrise. The world is perfectly still, covered in a blanket of snow. The only sound is the cold, crisp air in your lungs. It feels peaceful, serene. As you step out onto the ice, you hear that satisfying crunch under your boots. It's the sound of winter, the sound of ice fishing. You walk out to your chosen spot, maybe 100, 200 yards from shore, with every step, crunch, crunch, crunch. It's a sound you've heard 1,000 times and never given a second thought, but down below, in the dark, cold water, that sound isn't a gentle crunch. It's a signal. It's a rhythmic, low-frequency thump, thump, thump that announces your arrival. You believe you're moving in silence, but to the fish, you might as well be beating a drum, and that is where our whole problem begins. You're not sneaking up on them. You're telling them exactly where you are. Now let's tackle the biggest myth in ice fishing head-on. The myth is that thick ice muffles sound. It feels intuitive, right? A thick wall should block noise. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of physics. Ice is a solid. Sound, which is just vibration, travels through solids incredibly well, far better, in fact, than it travels through air. Here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine you're standing in a big, open field, and a friend 100 yards away whispers, "You won't hear a thing." The sound waves dissipate in the air. Now, imagine you both hold opposite ends of a long, taut string, and your friend whispers into their end. You'll hear it much more clearly. The solid string transmitted the vibrations efficiently. Ice is like that string, but on a massive scale. It's a giant frozen diaphragm stretched over the entire lake. Instead of muffling your footsteps, it acts as a conductor, channeling the vibration of your weight with startling efficiency directly into the water column below. That thick ice isn't your shield, it's a broadcast system. To really drive this point home, let's use a more powerful example that every one of you can visualize. Think about an old movie where someone puts their ear to a railroad track to listen for a distant train. Why do they do that? Because the vibration of the train travels for miles through the solid steel rail long before the sound of the whistle can be heard through the air. The steel is an incredibly efficient medium for sound. Ice is not as dense as steel, of course, but the principle is exactly the same. When you drop 180, maybe 200 pounds of body weight onto the ice with each step, you are creating a shock wave. It's a low-frequency vibration that radiates outwards through the ice, just like the ripples from a stone thrown into water. But unlike ripples on the surface, these vibrations travel through the solid ice sheet and then transfer that energy directly into the water underneath. It's a direct connection, a physical link between your boot and the fish's sensory organs. So let's talk about that magic number, 20 meters. That's roughly 65 feet. Where does this number come from? It's based on studies and observations of how low-frequency vibrations propagate through ice and into water, and how sensitive fish are to these disturbances. Within this 20-meter radius, the vibrations from a person walking normally on the ice are strong enough to be easily detected by most fish species, especially predators like pike, walleye, and trout, who are tuned to sense the movement of their prey. Think of it as your spook zone. Every time you move, you are managing a 65-foot circle of influence around you. If you're walking across the ice, you are pushing a massive wave of pressure and vibration ahead of you. Any fish inside that moving circle is going to be aware of your presence. They might not flee immediately, but they are certainly on high alert. Their feeding instincts switch off, and their survival instincts switch on. You have changed their behavior before you've even thought about drilling a hole. Now it's crucial to understand what the fish is actually hearing. It's not hearing the crunch of snow like you are. The high-frequency sounds get lost. What gets transmitted with brutal efficiency are the low-frequency thumps and vibrations. To a fish, this doesn't sound like footsteps. It sounds and feels like a large animal approaching. It's a thump, pause, thump that is unnatural in their underwater world. Most of the sounds they are used to are gurgles, the clicks of other fish, or the gentle lapping of water. A heavy rhythmic beat from above is a universal alarm signal in nature. It signifies danger. It could be a bear, a wolf, or in this case, a fisherman. The fish doesn't know the difference. All it knows is that something big and heavy is on the surface, and in its evolutionary playbook, that means it's time to either hide in the weeds, hug the bottom, or move out of the area entirely. You've triggered a fight or flight response, not a feeding response. This brings us to one of the most amazing sensory organs in the animal kingdom, the lateral line. We fishermen hear about it all the time, but we often don't appreciate what it really does. The lateral line is a system of sense organs that runs along the side of a fish's body. It detects movement, pressure changes, and vibration in the water. In essence, it allows the fish to feel its surroundings. So when we talk about a fish hearing your footsteps, it's more accurate to say it is feeling your footsteps. The vibration you send through the ice travels into the water as a pressure wave, and the fish's lateral line picks this up with incredible sensitivity. This is far more primal and direct than hearing with ears. It's a full-body sense. It's how a pike can strike a lure in pitch-black water. It's feeling the lure's vibration. And it's how that same pike can feel you walking around 20 meters away long before it ever sees your jig. Let's put ourselves in the fish's fins for a moment. You are a perch, calmly suspended a few feet off the bottom. Your entire world is defined by survival. You're constantly on the lookout for food, but more importantly, you're constantly on alert for anything that wants to eat you. Suddenly, you feel it. A rhythmic, deep thump, thump, thump resonates through your entire body, coming from the ceiling of your world. It's a pressure wave. It's unnatural. It doesn't feel like a smaller fish swimming by. It feels big. It feels heavy. What is your immediate, hardwired instinct? It's not to look up curiously and see if food is about to fall down. It's to get out of there. Your brain, evolved over millions of years, screams one word: predator. This is the automatic response you are triggering with every heavy step. You are unintentionally telling every fish below that a threat has arrived. And a scared fish is not a hungry fish. A scared fish is a fish with its mouth clamped shut. If your footsteps are like a drum, then your ice auger is an atomic bomb. We've all been guilty of it. We get to our spot and fire up the gas auger, or even a powerful electric one, and rip a hole in the ice. The noise is deafening to us, but we assume it's just part of the process. Under the water, that sound is magnified and distorted into a terrifying roar of grinding, shrieking, and intense vibration. It is the most violent and unnatural sound a fish will experience in its life. Hydrophone studies have shown that the sound of an ice auger can travel hundreds of meters underwater. It completely shatters the peace and sends any fish with an ounce of self-preservation instinct scattering for cover. You've just created the equivalent of an underwater earthquake and construction site rolled into one, right on top of the spot you want to fish. And then we wonder why it sometimes takes an hour to get the first bite. The fish are in a state of shock, hiding and waiting for the monster to leave. This leads to a critical question. How long does it take for the fish to recover? How long after you drill your holes do they calm down and go back to their normal behavior? The answer is a lot longer than you think. It's not a matter of minutes. Depending on the species, the water clarity, and the fishing pressure in the area, it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to over an hour for fish to feel safe enough to venture back into an area that has been violently disturbed. Many anglers drill their holes, immediately scoop them out, set up their gear, and drop a line in within 5 minutes. They are fishing in what is essentially a temporary dead zone they created themselves. The fish that were there have either moved 20 or 30 yards away, or they are hunkered down on the bottom, completely inactive. Patience after drilling is not just a virtue, it's a strategic necessity that most of us ignore in our haste to start fishing. Beyond the obvious noise of walking and drilling, there are the silent killers, the small, sharp sounds that we make without thinking. You get your sled to the spot and let it drop onto the ice with a loud thud. You take out your metal ice scoop and accidentally drop it, creating a sharp clang that echoes through the ice. You shuffle your feet to get warm, creating a constant scraping noise. You slam the lid of your tackle box shut. To us, these are minor, insignificant sounds, but remember, the ice is a conductor. That sharp clang from a dropped scoop is like a gunshot in the underwater world. It's a high-frequency, sudden sound that is extremely alarming to fish. Each one of these seemingly small mistakes sends a new jolt of panic through the water, resetting the clock on the fish's recovery time and keeping them in a state of higher alert. Being quiet isn't just about how you walk, it's about how you handle every single piece of your equipment. Let me tell you a story I've seen play out dozens of times. Picture two fishermen setting up about 50 yards apart on a promising spot. Fisherman A is typical. He walks out confidently, drops his sled, fires up his auger, and drills 5 holes in quick succession. He walks back and forth between them, kicking slush, getting his rods ready. Fisherman B is different. He walks out slowly, almost like he's stalking something. He gently places his sled on the snow. He uses a sharp hand auger and quietly shaves through the ice, drilling only 2 holes. He cleans them out, sets up his gear with minimal movement, and then sits perfectly still on his bucket. An hour later, Fisherman B has pulled 3 nice walleye out of his holes. Fisherman A hasn't had a single bite and is complaining about the slow day. It's not the spot, it's not the bait, it's the approach. One man announced his arrival with a brass band, the other slipped in like a ghost. But what about that really thick, late-season ice? We're talking 3 feet or more. Surely that has to help, right? Yes, it does, but not in the way you hope. Extremely thick ice can dampen some of the higher frequency sounds. That sharp clang from a dropped tool might not be as piercing. However, it does very little to stop the low-frequency thump of your footsteps. In fact, in some ways, it can make it worse. Think of the ice sheet as a giant guitar string. A thicker string produces a lower, deeper note. A thicker sheet of ice can transmit those low-frequency vibrations that fish are most sensitive to even more effectively. So while you might feel safer and more disconnected from the water on 3 feet of ice, the message your footsteps are sending is still getting through loud and clear. Don't let ice thickness give you a false sense of security. The rules of stealth still apply, no matter how deep the freeze is. Now let's talk about your absolute best friend when it comes to stealth on the ice: snow. A good layer of snow, even just a few inches, can make a world of difference. Snow is the opposite of ice. It is an excellent sound insulator and dampener. It's full of air pockets that absorb and scatter sound waves. Walking on a couple of inches of soft snow is infinitely quieter than walking on bare, slick ice. The snow acts as a cushion, absorbing the impact of your steps before the vibration can be transferred efficiently into the ice sheet. When you have good snow cover, you have a natural advantage, but when you're faced with glare ice after a thaw and refreeze, that's when you are at maximum volume. On those days, every single movement must be 10 times more careful because there is absolutely nothing between your boot and the ice to soften the blow. Always pay attention to the surface conditions. They dictate how stealthy you need to be. This whole concept of noise helps explain a very common and frustrating phenomenon: the dead zone. You fish a spot on Monday and it's on fire. You catch your limit. You come back on Tuesday to the exact same spot under the exact same weather conditions and you get nothing, not a single bite. You start to question everything. But what if the answer is simple? What if on Tuesday another group of fishermen got there an hour before you? They were noisy, they drilled a dozen holes, they walked around constantly, they effectively spooked all the resident fish out of the area. The fish didn't leave the lake, they just moved 100 yards away to find some peace and quiet. You then arrived and set up in a spot that had been recently traumatized. The fish are gone. This is also why community spots that get heavy traffic often fish poorly, except for maybe the first hour of the day before the noise and pressure become too intense. Okay, so we've established the problem. What's the solution? Let's talk about practical tips, starting with the stealth approach. When you are walking out to your spot, you need to change your mindset. You are not just walking, you are stalking. Instead of a normal heel-toe stride where your heel hits the ice hard, try to walk more flat-footed. Roll your foot from toe to heel. Take slower, more deliberate steps. Don't stomp. Think about distributing your weight as gently as possible. Imagine you were trying to walk across a floor covered in creaky floorboards without making a sound. It's the same principle. The goal is to minimize the sharp impact of each step, which creates the strongest vibration. It might feel a little silly at first, and it's definitely slower, but this careful approach is your first line of defense in not alerting every fish within that 20-meter circle that you're coming for them. Our second practical tip is a simple mantra: set up and shut up. This means you do all your noisy work at once, and then you commit to being still. Walk out to your spot. Plan where you want your holes, drill them all, clean them out. Get your sled, your chair, your electronics, and your rods all situated. Once everything is in place, you sit down and you stay there. The period of intense noise is over. Now the quiet begins. The less you walk around, the The less you shuffle your feet, the better. If you need to check another hole, move slowly and deliberately. The goal is to give the fish time to recover from the initial disturbance of you setting up. By staying put, you allow the area to cool down. The vibrations stop and the fish, whose curiosity might eventually overcome their fear, may begin to move back into the area to investigate. Constant, random movement will keep them wary and on edge indefinitely. Let's move on to our third tip: quiet gear management. Your equipment can be a major source of unintentional noise. The solution is simple: foam. Get one of those interlocking foam floor mats, the kind you see in a gym or a workshop. Keep a few squares of it on your sled. When you get to your spot, lay them down on the ice. This becomes your designated quiet zone. You can place your propane tank on it, your tackle box, your metal scoop. Anything that you might normally set down on the hard ice. The foam will completely absorb the sound of impact, no more thuds or clangs. This simple, cheap addition to your gear can eliminate 50% of the accidental noises you make throughout the day. It's about creating a buffer between your hard equipment and the giant frozen microphone you're standing on. It's a small change in habit that can have a massive impact on the environment under your feet. Finally, here is an experiment you can try for yourself. To become a true believer, you don't need a fancy hydrophone. All you need is observation. The next time you go out, dedicate the day to this. Start by fishing your normal way. Walk out, drill your holes, make some noise, and see what happens. Fish for an hour or two. Then pack up and move to a completely new area of the lake at least a few hundred yards away where no one has been. This time, apply the stealth principles. Walk slowly. Use a hand auger if you have one, or drill just one hole with your power auger. Set everything down on a foam pad. Sit still for a full 20 minutes before you even drop a line. Be as quiet as a mouse. Fish that spot and compare the results. Pay attention to how quickly you get your first bite. I am willing to bet that the results from your quiet spot will be dramatically better. Seeing it for yourself is the only proof you'll ever need. So let's wrap this all up. We've learned that ice is not a wall, it's a bridge for sound. We've learned that every footstep within a 20-meter radius is a clear signal to the fish below. The biggest takeaway, the real what a pоворot, or what a twist moment, is realizing that fish don't just hear you, they feel you through their lateral line, triggering a deep-seated predator avoidance instinct. This changes everything. It means that ice fishing success isn't just about finding the fish and using the right lure. It's about how you approach them. It elevates the importance of stealth to the same level as location and bait. Your behavior, your noise level, your very presence on the ice is a massive factor you've probably been ignoring. Thank you so much for watching and for being willing to challenge some old school thinking. If this gave you a new perspective, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next video. And now I want to hear from you. What's the noisiest, most careless thing you've ever seen another angler do on the ice? Or, better yet, do you have a secret stealth tip of your own? Share your stories and your wisdom in the comments below. Let's all learn from each other.